Do you see the smile on this face? For those of you who do not know me, I would like to take a moment to introduce myself. I am Chandra Scott Brown, the happiest woman alive today, but also the principal of CREC Museum Academy. My face is going to be stuck like this for a long time, so get used to it. It's been a journey. I started as the principal over 8 years ago in a lovely facility on Asylum Avenue in Hartford, Connecticut. We traveled amongst 6 buildings, a slate roof that would often fall, but one thing that never changed was the steadfast commitment from CREC as an agency and the parents that sent their kids. I am happy, I am honored, I am delighted, and my heart is just so warm right now because I see those families that started that journey with us. We like to call them our original babies. One thing about Museum Academy, once you enter those doors, you're always a part of our family. So now, my family just grew a little bit larger. You two are now part of the Museum Academy family, and I welcome you. I'm so delighted because this facility is amazing. And it took a lot of pain, late nights, agonies, but it is so well worth it. But more importantly, I stand before you because it's about the children. It's about the families that send their children to Museum Academy for an education, high quality education, an integrated education. And I had prepared some remarks, but those who know me also know I go off the cuff. Given this current political climate, a place like Museum Academy is even more important. It's a place where we educate brown, black, white, Muslim, Christian, Jewish children, all children. Museum Academy is a place that everyone is welcome. No excuses, excellence is what we strive for. As the leader, I too strive for excellence. As my staff walk the halls and greet students, I expect excellence. And from our kids, they expect us to be excellent as well. This is a place where differences are embraced and celebrated. Bigotry, racism is not welcomed here. This is a place where children are loved, they're cared for, and they're nurtured. This is a place that I proudly send my children to. This is a place where we're not perfect, but by golly, we strive for perfection every single day. It's a place where we're not too big to accept criticism, we accept feedback, and we love praise. It's a place where, in my hopes and my dreams, when I graduated in 1996 for a historically black college in Daytona Beach, Florida, that I never could imagine that I would be standing here this day. I am the product of public education. I am the product of what a quality education, integrated education looks like. I stand before you proud, humbled. I stand before you as a leader who is willing and ready to take on the challenges of the world today. But I stand before you, more importantly, as a proud principal of this lovely, and I can tell you, I'm hitting 10,000 steps by noontime every day, Museum Academy. I could have not ever dreamed of a more perfect place to have our babies enter the doors. And with that, I'd like to turn the program over to our leader, the Executive Director of CREC, Dr. Greg Florio. Thank you and welcome.
Chandra, when your family gets bigger, you need a bigger house. Got it. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
It's really, really a pleasure to be here and celebrate this exciting building and this facility and all the work that went into it. I do want to take a moment to thank all of the key partners and our special guests that are here today. We have Representative David Barham. We have Mayor of Bloomfield, Joan Gamble, welcome. Joe Washington from the Town Council, and Phil Shank, the Town Manager. We have from the Bloomfield Board of Ed, the CREC Council, the State Board of Education, Don Harris. We also have representatives from the architecture firm of Smith, Edward, and McCoy, and our contractor, BB&E. We also have the last principal of the school that was here prior to this school, Mr. Guzzo, welcome. I also want to welcome two very special guests, my predecessors at CREC, Bruce Douglas and John Allison. Thank you for joining us and laying the groundwork for so much of the work that we were able to do. And I want to throw out a very, very special thank you to the CREC construction team, and especially Antonetta Di Benedetto, who was a project manager on this job, who did an incredible, incredible job fostering this from concept to what we're in today. So thank you all very much for joining us. I think Chandra said it very well. I don't know if any of you are movie buffs. Have you ever seen the movie Field of Dreams? And the analogy isn't that this is the Field of Dreams. When I began as executive director of CREC and I would visit some of our schools, I always felt like I was in a little bit of that scene at the end of the movie where, and I don't remember the name of the character, but he steps off the field and he changes into, he goes from being a young man and changes into his present self. I always felt that when I was driving up to the Museum Academy building. Because as you drive up to their facilities, and I say that plural, because they were not in one location, you think to yourself, I'm going to a school, but I'm in an office park or an industrial park. And yet when you cross the threshold of that door, you are amazed that you are in a school. It feels like a school. It's a community. Amazing things are happening every day. I am so excited because I know what you did in those conditions. I know what you did to make a school out of the Museum Academy in those places. I am ecstatic to think what's going to happen here. One of the first things I got to do was listen to the student docents present their reports to me. And they were in tight hallways and cramped conditions, and now they're going to be able to do it in this incredible facility. As she said, this is what we are about. We are about providing opportunity for children, all children, to learn. And I just am looking forward to see what happens in this incredible, incredible school. So thank you all very much for joining us. And it's my pleasure to ask representing the CREC Council, Don Harris, our past chair, to come up and say a few words. Don?
Good morning, all. Even this beautiful day that we have here. You know, I want to say thank you to Greg for giving me the opportunity to speak before you all today. You know, anybody that knows Aura, who kind of puts these things together, you know, you even got it printed here, a minute-by-minute schedule. So she gave me 5 minutes to speak, and I know she's got a hook out there somewhere ready to pull me in if I go 1 second over that 5 minutes. But I've been a resident of this town for almost 60 years. Not quite as long as Joan, but for almost 60 years. I've spent a lot of time on this site when it was the old J.P. Vincent School, working for Parks and Rec and just being around and being a part of this school. But I thought about what I wanted to say. I figured I was going to make it a little personal for me, and hopefully for some of you. Because closer to my heart is this museum school. You see, I have a granddaughter who is now 14 years old. and currently a freshman at Bloomfield High School. Jamie was a charter member of this school in its beginnings, as it was called, the Asylum Hill School for Young Children. She told me last night that she was in pre-K 3, pre-K 4, kindergarten, and then at the church site, and then it was moved over to the old Hartford College for Women, where Chandra appeared. And it was called then the Charter School for Young Children. But before they left that site, the name was changed to the Museum School. Finally, Museum found a permanent home here in Bloomfield, where my granddaughter was a proud member of the first 5th grade class to leave this building in 2014. So I have a real affection and a very personal relationship with this building. But that was then, and this is now. Principal Chandra, Brown, your staff, and most important, your students have been troopers. And from 2014 to now, you've been living out of temporary quarters while your new facility was being built, but yet you have never stopped doing what you do best, and that is to educate and teach our children. To my friends, my colleagues here at CREC, I say thank you for the work that you do every day. I have been involved as a member of the CREC board for more than 6 years and have marveled at the work that has been done, and so proud to be a part of this from a distance, but I'm still a part of this because education has been my life. I spent 39 years in the Bloomfield school system. I've been on the Bloomfield board for 6 years. I've been on the CREC board for 6 years. I'm involved with CABE and now sit on the state board. So education is my life, and seeing that our children are educated in these very tough times. We are living in some very tough times, but thank you for allowing me just to say a few words, and very best to you, because I know you're going to do a wonderful job.
They let me speak twice. That could be dangerous. No. 8 years ago, I met a man who challenged my thinking. I met a man who always encouraged me to be better today than I was yesterday. I worked for a man sometimes I didn't always agree with, but I knew as I left the room that we had a common goal: a high-quality education for all, no excuses. And that man, I would like to introduce Dr. Bruce Douglas.
Good morning, everyone. This is a really special day. You know, I was thinking about what I was going to talk about on it. I was flying last night, coming back from someplace, and I was thinking about the Tale of Two Cities, which begins, it was the best of times and it is the worst of times, right? And that's what we're living in the United States right now. So first of all, I want to thank the town of Bloomfield. And Don, I want to thank you very much for being interceding on many cases for CREC in the town of Bloomfield. As you know, we have another magnet school in town, and we were going to build another magnet school in town until the state spoke up and and we weren't able to build that school. But notice how I'm keeping myself under control here, right? It was good. Good. Am I doing okay, Aura? Good. Aura gave me a big lecture last night. But in any event, I want to thank the town of Bloomfield for many things, right? In 1970, I became a teacher in the town of Bloomfield. And I taught here for 17 years. I came from a really small town in Oklahoma called Anadarko. Right? Anadarko is made up of Comanche Indians, Kiowa Indians, Caddo Indians, Mexican Americans, African Americans, and Anglo Americans. And we were all poor. Right? And so there was very little discrimination. In fact, my first race riot, so to speak, during the 60s was a fight between, a cafeteria row between a Comanche boy and a Kiowa boy, because one was dating the other one's sister, and they weren't allowed to do that. So it shows you that this issue that we have with racism extends beyond just black and white and brown, okay? It is one of the characteristics of mankind. You find it all over the world. This canine tooth I have right here is proof of it. But when I came to Bloomfield, I was generally ignorant, okay, about racism, institutional racism. And it was the greatest thing that happened to me in my life. It was the best days of my life. Even now, when people ask me where I'm from, oftentimes I say I'm from Bloomfield, Connecticut. Right? Bloomfield gave me a great education. I was a teacher, but the professional development I got, the leadership in our schools, what I learned from my students, and what I learned from from the parents of my students, the empathy that I began to develop for my children in my schools because of their deprivation, their poverty, the socioeconomic injustice, was just beyond my imagination. And even to this very day, I have a very difficult time comprehending it. One thing that's very important for us to know, Connecticut is one of the bluest states in the Union, and we're one of the 3 most segregated states in the United States in schools. It shows you about the height of hypocrisy, the height of hypocrisy. That's what institutional racism is all about. It's the natural order of things, except for those who are the victim of it. They see it, but the rest of us don't. And we accept it for what it is. How can a state as liberal as Connecticut be among the top 3 in segregated schools? And you know what? Fighting to keep the schools segregated. Fighting to keep the schools segregated. There are organizations in this state, Board of Ed organizations, administrator organizations, State Department of Ed, legislature, others, that don't see this institutional racism, and by virtue of the fact that they're ignorant to it, they perpetuate this incredible sin, this great immorality that we have in our state. We have to pay attention to it as we go forward. Now about the J.P. Vincent School. When I was in Bloomfield for those 15 to 17 years, I came to the elementary schools quite often because I was a director of curriculum. And this school, for several years, was the highest performing elementary school in the town of Bloomfield. J.P. Vincent School that was right over there on that soccer field. I walked the halls of that school. There were magnificent teachers in that school. Magnificent teachers in that school, and the most beautiful children, because at that time in 1970, the town of Bloomfield decided on their own, without any nudge from anybody, that they were going to desegregate their schools. The only one in the state of Connecticut. And our children were bused all around this small town, okay, to make sure that all of our schools were balanced in such a way. And it was the greatest years of our lives, right, Don? Right. It was absolutely beautiful, unbelievable. The achievement that was going on in our schools, how our kids loved one another. I remember when I was a vice principal at Bloomfield Junior High School, I had to bring some of my students in and say, look, you can't call one another the N-word or the cracker word, but you might call them an MF if you want, okay? You might call them the big B if you want. But if you use those words, okay, I have to put you out of school. So we had to teach the kids how to insult one another, okay, in such a way that they could survive. Remember how he did that. But it was a beautiful place. And the J.P. Vincent School was a beautiful school. Some of the notables who went to that school was a Major General in the United States Marine Corps, Paul Kennedy. Still a Major General. Another one that I'm sure many of you know is Anika Noni Rose, who went to that school. Little tiny tot. Right? In the first grade, I remember seeing her. Right? And a very famous model, Alexis Manson, went to that school. Right. I also want to thank the chef plaintiffs. Okay? Those 20 parents who came together to say this racism, this institutional racism we have in the Hartford Public Schools in the state of Connecticut has to end. 20 brave people stood up, okay, and they brought this case to the courts of the state of Connecticut, led by Elizabeth Sheff, and with the intellect of Dennis Parker, a great attorney, and with the fighting spirit of Martha Stone. Don't ever get Martha Stone after you, okay? It'll be really bad for you. I also want to thank the architects who built this school, Smith, Edwards, and McCoy. Okay? You built many schools for us, several schools for us, and you've done a superb job on every one of them. Okay? I want to thank the project manager, Annetta Annetta, I know I'm screwing that up. A person who program manages the school, and also Noel, I want to recognize Noel Jenkins from BB&E. A person who manages the school is like a physician. They're saying, I'm looking out for the best interest, okay, of the people who are paying me to do this job. Okay? And if the people who are paying you to do this job convey to the program manager that this school is a mission with the big M, okay, they take ownership of the school. It's as though you're overseeing the building of your own home, okay, for your own children. And that's what they did. It was a remarkable job that you've done. On April 17th, in 2008, I received a call from the Commissioner of Education at home. It was a Sunday afternoon. When you get a call from the Commissioner of Education at home, right, it is not a good thing. Right? I've gotten a few of those. I've been scolded many times, but happily, by the way. But he called me and he said, Bruce, and I could tell by his tone that I wasn't in any trouble and that he was going to ask me for something, because you know how people use different voices when they're either going to scold you or ask you for something, right? And he said, Bruce, do you think that, this was in April, do you think that CREC could open up another magnet school for this coming September? I said, well, how many students do you need to have in the school? He said, well, when the school is fully enrolled, it has to be 500 students. And I said, what do we have to enroll it with? He said, probably about 150, 200 kids. I said, sure, we can do that. He said, well, we're in the middle of negotiations with the chef plaintiffs right now, and we're way below our benchmark numbers, okay, for integrating the schools under the court order of the Supreme Court. Why they were way below, I don't know, but they were way below. And we need to speed it up quick, otherwise we're going to be in serious trouble. So I said, well, what if we were to open up 2 schools? Would that help you? And he said, yeah, absolutely, that would help you. I said, what about 3? He said, you think you could do 4? I said, yeah, we could do 4. Right. So we agreed to open up 4 schools, okay, on April 20th, that would be open by September 1st. Imagine hiring the teachers, getting the books, developing the curriculum, all that implies, training the teachers, finding the sites where the schools were going to be located, because the schools weren't constructed. We had to go out and lease space and then build out the space in order to put the schools in there. It was a remarkable accomplishment on the part of CREC staff at that time. Everyone in the whole agency was in for this. Right? It was a mission with a big M. It was an extraordinary time, right, Sandy? Extraordinary time. Almost makes me cry when I think about it. It's so beautiful. At that time, we developed the Public Safety Academy, which today has 500 students. We developed the Reggio Emilia Magnet School of the Arts, which has 500 students. We developed the International Magnet School for Global Citizenship, which has 500 students. And we developed a charter school for young children on Asylum Hill, now the Museum Academy of this school, which has approximately 500 students. Right. Do you know how long it takes a school board to build a school? Approximately 7 years. Right? Because we have to listen to every naysayer in the room. Right? And the naysayers are the relevant ones in the room. That's how you stay relevant. Just remember that. If you ever feel irrelevant, talk against it, and all of a sudden, you'll be important. In addition to agreeing to build those 4 schools, we negotiated an increase in student tuition because we maneuvered the state and we needed more money for our kids, and we knew that we had them in a certain position, and we weren't going to relent on anything without getting something more for our kids. We increased the tuition $2,000 per pupil, right? Which was pretty significant at that time. Our average per pupil expenditure at that time was about $8,000, so we moved it up to $10,440. We also established that CREC would own the magnet schools going forward, so that we knew that the state at no time would take those magnet schools and transfer them over to some other agency for political purposes. People who worked with me on this project were very special. It was Denise Gallucci, Dr. Mark O'Donnell, who wrote the operations plan for each one of these schools over that summer, Sandy Cruz Serrano, who's here with us today, Don Walsh, former business official, Gus Penna, project manager, Don McCure, project manager, Jackie Wasta, one of the best pupil services people I ever worked with, Fran DiFiore, and of course, Aura Alvarado, who was my administrative assistant at the time, AKA Che Guevara. Each of these schools presented a battle for the location and the final construction on which town it's going to be in. The number of places that we looked for each one of these schools and the battles that we got from those school districts and those towns not to have a desegregated magnet school, which might draw some of their students to that school, was absolutely incredible and shameful, and still is to this very day. But for this particular school, it was particularly ugly. There were times that Sandy and I and Denise Gallucci went home with tears in our eyes from what we saw, okay, from our fellow residents in the state of Connecticut, from the West End of Hartford, and from the Hartford Public Schools. It was absolutely embarrassing. Our construction philosophy for all of our schools was that the school should send a message. Have any of you ever seen a Mormon church? Mormon church? You can see it from miles away, right? Giant spire into the sky. The school, the church is absolutely magnificent. Many of our churches are absolutely magnificent. Bloomfield has some of the most beautiful churches, in the state of Connecticut. We decided that our schools were going to look and send a message the same as churches or public buildings, that what happens here is extremely important, that everyone who works here is highly valued. Every child who goes to this school is highly valued and will come out successful. And every parent who entrusts their children to us in this school is highly valued, and we will listen to them. And I think this school sends that message. But if the student achievement scores are not good, this is an ugly place. No sense having a building like this if kids aren't going to leave it reading on level, if kids aren't going to be able to do their math on level, if the students aren't on a track for success, whether it be in college, go to the military, or go into business, or get a job some other place. This school is not going to be successful if our students don't understand a sense of community. And when they look at someone who doesn't look like them, that they feel comfortable with it. So, you have a big job ahead of you. Okay? You got this school, and we're all going to gather next fall to take a look at the student achievement scores for this coming year, okay? That's a joke. We won't do that. All right. Okay, good. So, What happens in this school, this beautiful school, should be meaningful and represent all that is good in America. And remember, as I said, Connecticut is still among the top 3 most segregated schools in the nation. Institutional racism still prevails, and we have so much more to overcome. We have only begun the battle. May God bless this school as a symbol for all that CREC represents. Thank you.
It would only be fitting for us to do the next part of this presentation. Bloomfield is now what I consider my second home. J.P. Vincent School means a lot to me. My uncle lives in this town, and he reminds me each and every day that J.P. Vincent was a great man. And so we would like to take this time and have a presentation, because I said once we got this new school, we still had to continue the legacy of J.P. Vincent. And so with that, we have dedicated our library media specialist to Dr. J.P. Vincent. Paul, could you please come up for a presentation, please? So this title came as a symbol of J.P. Vincent, who was a great man in Bloomfield and an advocate for education for all students. We have a special story. Mr. Guzzo and I go way back. We were teachers together in East Hartford. And when he moved to Bloomfield, and he heard I was coming to Bloomfield, he extended his love, his care, and his patience, and said, if you ever need anything, call me, Chandra. And so when we were building this school, I said, it's only fitting that I have Paul come and we dedicate this media center to J.P. Vincent. Mr. Guzzo, who's a dear friend of mine and who knows me very well, even as a teacher, and now we're colleagues. So we issue this plaque on behalf of CREC Museum Academy to the former J.P. Vincent. Just having so much fun up here. Excuse me. So now I would like to take this time to introduce our new superintendent of schools, Mr. Tim Sullivan. Tim?
So I had the pleasure of introducing our ensemble, our student performance group. You guys can come on up. We're going to hear from our students, because that's what it's all about, is the students. I'd like to thank Ms. D'Angelo and the students. I'm going to ask the students to please stand up, tell us your name and what town you live in.
My name is Ava, and I live in My name is Sarah, and I live in Hartford. My name is Alpine, and I live in Southfield. My name is David, and I live in Newton. My name is Caroline, and I live in Newton. My name is Lauren, and I live in Hartford. My name is Stella, and I live in Newton.
All right, thank you. I always get a little tear in my eye when I hear where the students are from, because that's what makes a CREC school different than a neighborhood school. And the fact that they all get to come together and share their music is a wonderful thing. I want to say a couple of quick things. Dr. Douglas used up almost all my time, so I have to be quick. But first of all, I want to acknowledge the smartest person in the room. This event was scheduled for outside, and yesterday Aura made the decision to move us inside, so Aura, good job. I would have been a little droopy out there. My mascara would have run and everything. So I'm hearing a lot about the town of Bloomfield, and I have to kind of come clean and be honest and say that I was a teacher and football coach at Weaver High School. So back in those days, I despised the Bloomfield Warhawks. But in my 6 years at CREC, I've really come to embrace the collaboration and the relationship with the town of Bloomfield, and really thankful that the town of Bloomfield has opened their arms to us, and want to make sure that our arms are open to you. If there's anything that we can do at CREC, in the agency or the magnet school side, to support the work in the town of Bloomfield, we're there for you. Because we really believe in collaborating and working with people and building strong partnerships. As Dr. Douglas pointed out, the building's an impressive building. And when I think about these buildings, I think about the hearts and the souls of the children and the families who enter. I live in Hartford. I live near a lot of dilapidated schools. I see children get out of cars or off buses and walk into their schools with their head down. I taught at Weaver High School, a building with no windows, for 12 years. I know the psychological impact that a facility has on a school, on children, the psychological impact that a facility has on children. And this isn't just a shining glory to how much we care about education, but it's a clear and direct message to the students and the parents who send their kids to this school that their education is really important, and that we as a society value them. There are going to be 500 students here for the next 30 years. Thousands of students are going to come walk through these doors and get the message that they are valued, that their education is valued. Chandra and her team were great teachers no matter what facility they were in. They were able to deliver instruction. But this is going to do something more. It's not just going to be a better place to teach. It's also going to be a message sender, a message that value education, and that no matter where you live, no matter what your zip code is, no matter which of these wonderful towns you come from, that you are valued by us, by CREC, by the town of Bloomfield, by the state of Connecticut. That's what today's about, is showing the kids that we value them and giving them all the tools they need to be successful. So thank you. Okay, so I just want to quickly thank everybody that was a part of this, the parents that took time out of their day to come out, the staff members and family, the people from the CREC agency and CREC Magnet Schools that came out today, because we have to act as a family. What we're going to try to do now is we're going to try to be an orderly family, and we're going to go downstairs for the ribbon cutting.
The students and the dignitaries first.
Okay, so the students and the dignitaries are going to go. If you don't know if you're a dignitary or not, you're probably not a dignitary. If you see yourself as a dignitary, you are one. But the students and the dignitaries will go down first and set up by the ribbon downstairs.
Have it set up.
Yep, they'll have it set up. You can follow Aura. And then the rest of us, the parents and the staff members, will follow down after that. Okay, so you can enjoy some food and drink. Dignitaries and students, please go downstairs for the ribbon cutting.